Hi there, welcome back to the channel Big Shots with Natalie. Today I'd like to indulge in a bit of nostalgia and share the behind-the-scenes story of how one of my favorite films was made. Point Break 1991 is a lively action movie about an FBI agent who infiltrates a gang of surfers robbing banks. In the 90s, I absolutely adored this movie. The filming on the water and in the air was mesmerizing. The concept for the film Point Break originated from American screenwriter and director Rick King. While learning to surf, Rick came across a newspaper article highlighting Los Angeles as the hub of bank robberies. This inspired him to develop a story about a gang of surfers who engage in bank heists. The plot revolves around an undercover FBI agent tasked with infiltrating this group of criminals. To craft the screenplay, Rick King enlisted the assistance of a young screenwriter named Peter Aliff, who agreed to pen the script for a modest sum of $6,000, as he was in dire need of money at the time. Juggling his duties as a waiter during the day, Peter dedicated his nights to writing the screenplay for Point Break. As for the director, the renowned filmmaker Ridley Scott was initially approached for the position in 1987. He initially agreed to take on the role, but later changed his mind in favor of another film. Subsequently, the script was shelved for several years until the producers made an unexpected decision to approach a young female director, Katherine Bigelow, for assistance. It's likely that her marriage to James Cameron played a significant role in this choice. Katherine readily agreed to take on the role of director for the film and expressed a keen interest in creating a movie centered around adrenaline addicts. Originally, the film was intended to be titled Johnny Utah, in honor of the main character. However, James Cameron, who assisted his wife and was also an executive producer, vetoed this title. It was then proposed that the film be titled Riding the Storm, inspired by the song Riders on the Storm by The Doors. This suggestion received positive feedback. However, during the filming process, someone recommended changing the title to Point Break. Eventually, this option was chosen and retained for the film. But many may wonder, what does Point Break mean? It is a term used by surfers to describe ideal conditions for riding a wave. And by the way, almost immediately after the release of the film, James Cameron and Katherine Bigelow divorced. Katherine Bigelow would screen every shot of Point Break to her husband James Cameron, seeking his assessment. Meanwhile, Cameron reciprocated by allowing Bigelow to view footage from Terminator 2, which he was directing concurrently. Despite Rick King and Billy Aliff being credited as screenwriters, James Cameron made numerous edits to their script, resulting in significant differences from the original version. The studio aimed to cast a well-known actor as Johnny Utah. They contemplated several options including William Dafoe, Charlie Sheen, Matthew Broderick, Johnny Depp, and surprisingly, Patrick Swayze. However, Katherine Bigelow insisted that Keanu Reeves play the role. Despite the initial skepticism due to Keanu's previous comedy roles, Bigelow was sure that Keanu would be a perfect fit for the role of a young FBI agent. Katherine Bigelow stood firm in her decision. She even went as far as to threaten to resign as director if the studio didn't comply with her choice. Eventually, the studio relented, allowing her to cast Reeves in the role. Katherine Bigelow took full responsibility for her decision and took charge of Keanu Reeves' preparation for the role. She personally coached him on proper movement and pushed him to train rigorously. Essentially, she became his constant mentor and guide, determined to shape Reeves into an action star. Despite initially considering the role of Johnny Utah, Patrick Swayze ultimately decided to portray the character Body. After reading the entire script, Swayze felt a connection to Body character, finding similarities between himself and the role. To immerse himself into the role of an FBI agent, Keanu Reeves was trained by the seasoned FBI officer William Rader. However, as Rader himself would later write in his book, he gave Keanu Reeves a whole bunch of tips on how to portray agents, but the actor never applied any of them in the film. Since the film delved into the world of surfing, the main actor had to undergo extensive training in waveboarding from professional surfer Dennis Jarvis for several months. Keanu Reeves confessed that while stuntmen performed most of the wave stunts, he did take the falls himself, enduring multiple hits to the head with the board. Patrick Swayze, on the other hand, preferred to perform as many stunts as possible himself. However, his enthusiasm for stunt work led to consequences. He ended up breaking 4 ribs and severely injuring his knee during the stunts. The knee injury was so severe that he had to undergo daily drainage of fluid from the knee. Moreover, Swayze was an avid fan of parachuting, boasting over 50 jumps outside of his acting career. However, he was forbidden from parachuting during the filming of Point Break to prevent any accidents, as the filmmakers were concerned about the inexperienced actor risking his life. Despite his injuries, Patrick Swayze managed to persuade the studio bosses to allow him to perform one independent jump for the film. All the scenes of the surfers swimming at night were actually filmed during the daytime. The parachutists were filmed from a helicopter flying close to the plane, which led to a mid-air accident. The damaged aircraft managed to land safely, but the helicopter crew faced difficulties. Fortunately, despite injuries and bruises, there were no fatalities. Keanu Reeves' parachute-free jump caught the attention of Mythbusters, who conducted their experiment. They found that it is indeed possible to fall onto someone from above in the air, but communication would be impossible due to the intense noise and the significantly shorter duration of the fall. The scenes depicting actors jumping with parachutes and flying in the air were actually filmed just 3 meters above the ground. A specially constructed crane facilitated this, allowing the actors to be harnessed securely with belts and positioned on the platform. Powerful fans situated beneath them created the necessary airflow for the illusion of flight. During the filming of Point Break, Patrick Swayze was simultaneously involved in the promotion of another film, Ghost, in which he played the lead role. As a result, there were occasions when he was not available for shooting, leading the production team to focus on scenes where his character was not present. The final scene of the film was reshot 6 months after the initial filming concluded. James Cameron was dissatisfied with the original ending and deemed it necessary to make changes. As a result, the actors' appearances had also slightly changed during this time. With a budget of $24 million, the film grossed $83.5 million at the box office, not including earnings from video sales. However, despite the success of the film, when James Cameron proposed making a sequel, the studio executives declined. Later, there were attempts to create a sequel, but by that time, Patrick Swayze had already been diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away in 2009. Subsequently, James Cameron gave up the idea. In the film, there is a subtle nod to Dirty Dancing, another movie starring Patrick Swayze. When Johnny arrives with his surfboard, Bodhi, played by Swayze, compares the boards to a 1957 Chevrolet, the same car his character drove in Dirty Dancing. Anthony Kiedis, the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, had a small role as one of the surfers in the film. That's all for today. Thanks for your attention and time. Please like and subscribe in order not to miss my new videos. Thank you very much.